Hey folks, we're ready to get started. I'm Sean Mitchell, I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Gather AI. Pleasure of Cody.
Cody Merritt, Director of Solution Design and Innovation at NFI.
We're excited to speak with you today, and I'm hoping everybody's got a great start to the show. Go through. If anybody was curious what our faces look like. Perfect. So I can give you a little bit of background on Gather AI. Gather AI is the world leader in autonomous drone-powered inventory management. What that means then is we go through, create a full digital map of our customers' warehouses, map every single pallet location, and then what we're able to do is to actually bring autonomous drones that fly through the warehouse, image every single pallet location. As they image the location, they're reading barcodes, they're reading text, we're able to count face cases, as well as we're able to identify empty locations. Everything gets compared directly to the warehouse management system, and from there, everything is visible on a web dashboard. This means you can virtually walk through your warehouse, you can see every single location, you can highlight the exceptions, and from here, instead of going through and having an individual scanning locations and having it lines in an Excel spreadsheet, you can be 15x faster, and at the same time, have total traceability with pictures of every location. So we've had the fortunate opportunity of getting to partner with NFI, and Cody specifically, his team has been amazing. And really the idea here is to share a little bit of what worked out in our partnership.
All right, good deal. Thanks, Sean. So yeah, guys, I wanted to start by first sharing who NFI is, a little bit about our innovation process, and then we'll get into the partnership with Gather AI, some of the results, right, from what we've worked so far, and then what our roadmap looks like here in the future. So, looking at NFI at a glance, we're privately held by the Brown family since the 1930s. They're still leading the company. We're a fully integrated solutions provider, so we have solutions for transportation, real estate, port services, and then the warehousing and distribution division, which I support. Looking at warehousing and distribution, we're about 70 million square foot in space, and that's across 150 locations in North America. So a lot of opportunity to use the drone across our buildings. All right, so this slide, it looks at what innovation is for NFI. Really, this is where we are going after cutting-edge technology, a lot of what you guys will be seeing here at MODEX, and it's stuff that's new to the industry, right? So not so much AGVs and AMRs, right, that's been proven, but things that maybe haven't been proven that we are trying to pilot in our existing operations. We do not operate in a lab environment. We try to actually put new technologies in a real-life warehouse, right, that we're operating in to truly get the results from the pilot, and the hope is, right, to scale. So what do we go after, right? We look for challenges that our customers are facing, right? So we're going after trying to drive CI, safety issues. We use a top-down approach with our president of distribution and leadership to kind of help us understand where the challenges are and then how those could be applied to multiple customers, right? And not just one or a single site. And this is just a deep dive into our innovation delivery. So we used a phased approach. You can see here 5 phases from ideation, right, all the way to scale. So I already kind of explained the ideation side. That's researching where are our customers having challenges, trying to get those vendors, get those concepts piled up, right, for our proof of concept phase. And in the proof of concept phase, this is where we are doing our due diligence. We're putting together a business case. We are comparing vendors and trying to give leadership really the data they need to make a decision on who we should partner with. From there, we move into a prototype once we get approval. Our prototype is where we're trying to test, but not at full scale yet. So this is where we are looking at a subset of the warehouse. Maybe it's a couple aisles. Maybe it's a couple pieces of equipment. Really an area for us to test for a couple months, get data that we need to go against our business case, and determine, can we turn this on for the full site? Pilot is what we define as the full site, right? So this would be deploying, that technology across the whole location, and from here we can get 3 to 6 months of better data at full scale in that building, and then from there we expand, right? So we're looking at putting this into other sites, multiple sites of a similar customer base, and trying to get this also into new business opportunities as well. All right, so that was a little bit about the innovation at NFI, and now we'll kind of get into really the business case for drones, right, and why we've partnered with Gather. So here on the slide, you can see we've got four really categories that kind of went into our business case. The big one is labor shortage and safety. I know, everybody in the industry is feeling that right now. It's gotten a little better, right, since COVID. But when you look at our buildings across 150 locations, and you've got anywhere from 1 to 5 cycle counters in a building, that can really add up, right? And trying to find workers, right, for that job, that was a challenge we were faced with. Safety is another big piece there. When you do cycle counting, if you're familiar, you're going up to high rack levels, you're using an order picker piece of equipment, and that labor, right, would be best served on the floor, right, if we can. Increasing costs, right, we're seeing, our operators' dollars per hour exceeding over $20 now, right? So made a lot of sense for the business case. I think the storage profile is a unique one here, right? So from when you look at a lot of our facilities, they are inland, right? They're on the west coast, in the Inland Empire. They're up in the Northeast. We're in Savannah. This is where the real estate costs are going through the roof, right? So we are trying to densify our sites. And as Sean mentioned before, really the sweet spot for the drone is in the rack profiles. So the more buildings that we are putting up with racking, which we're seeing more and more often, it just makes sense, right, to continue scaling there. Last one here is customer requirements. Two pieces to this, right? So you've got contractual KPIs that our customers are looking for around inventory, accuracy, and trying to keep up with those. And then you've also got customers just wanting to automate, right? When we get new business pursuits, which I help support, they're always looking to automate. Sometimes their business profile doesn't make sense to automate, but really you'll see when we get through the Gather solution here that it makes sense for really a lot of our customers, depending on their volumes, depending on their scale. All right, so this dives in a little bit to our proof of concept, some of the results from our prototype, and trying to give you guys a sneak peek as to really what that looked like. So we picked one of our customers out in Chino, California. They're a retailer. We did our prototype for 2 months, and we began in 2023. When we put together our proof of concept, we were looking for a less than 4-month payback. And the hope was that with the drone, we could also count the site almost 15 more times across the year than what we traditionally do today. Our inventory labor in hours, we'd go from around 3 FTEs to 1, so we can move that labor into other areas of the warehouse. And then from an equipment standpoint, our hope was to reduce from 2 to 1. So the scope was really just 1 aisle of the warehouse, and we really had that retrofitted with the Gather team to get that aisle up and running. And these were the items that we were looking at there on the screen, our success criteria. So productivity, safety, intervention rate, accuracy, and indirect time. So these 5 items, we partnered with our ops teams to track these daily, and then we reviewed results weekly with the Gather team. So results-wise, here on the side of the slide, you can see that we really counted that aisle a lot, right? So we did 10,000 locations scanned over that 2 months, 160 flights. I would say by the end of it, our ops team was ready to get to another aisle of the building. So that was a very accurate aisle. But coming out of that, we did have really good results. Our productivity was 5 times faster than traditional methods. And this included, right, indirect time, using the drone, getting it set up in the aisles. So this kind of had the bundled in, realized productivity that we were using. No intervention. This was one item that probably us, unfamiliar with the drones before starting, we were thinking, is it going to go down? Are we going to find it somewhere? That never happened, right? So there was no interventions. Really, they flew autonomously. They came back. That was, something we easily stopped tracking really at the beginning of it. And safety-wise, our employees loved it. It got them off the equipment, kept us on the ground. So no safety issues there. We partnered with our safety group throughout this prototype. and then accuracy levels. So as we got into really month 2, we were at 99, 98% of scanning the LPNs. So great results there. We could rely on the drone to get us the data that we were looking for. All right, so with those results, current state, this is kind of a look at our roadmap here with the Gather team. We went ahead and moved forward with the pilot in that site. So we're at full scale in that building. We have 1 to 2 drones across the year, depending on peaks and what we're looking at there. It's 23,000 rack locations now from the 1 aisle we did before, and we're already seeing realized labor savings in this area and able to put that labor in other areas where we're using temporary staff currently. The next phase would be scaling this. Immediately we're excited about the West Coast. This is where we have a campus environment. We've got a lot of multi-client facilities, sites that are using rack, just given the SoCal lease markets, right? So we're adding rack to those buildings. That's our hope. We had a good demo day with all of our GMs. They came on site, got to see the drone in action, and this is the goal, right, for the beginning of this year. And in the future, right, we're going to really open this up to any site that we have in North America, on the East, the Central U.S., up in Canada. So we're excited to expand this across any customer that has similar requirements. All right, so wins and lessons learned. I'd say the big one from my side on the left side of the slide here would be the implementation side of it. We're going to explore, you'll see a lot of different technologies around MODEX. All of them are great, they offer great paybacks, but some of them come with time, resources, and complexities, right, throughout that process. With Gather, it was a very seamless implementation. It was quick. They're in a month. We've got the building set up with the labels, and we're flying, within a couple weeks, right? So that was the big thing from my side. It became a nice tool to our kit of other technologies, one that's very easy, one we can apply to customers quicker. No integration, right, with WMS systems, which could be cumbersome. From a roadmap item, we're excited about this as well. But pallet occupancy, case counting, other items that we're working with Gather on, which we're excited about in the future. The one here about people and improved job satisfaction, this one was one that kind of surprised me, right? When we came in, I flew to California for the first week to deploy the systems, and some of our employees at the start were, wow, a drone's coming in. What's the drone going to do? Is it taking our jobs? And that was that had changed, right, from month 2. They were excited about it. They got to go home, tell their families, hey, we used a drone. Hey, I got to go into another area of the warehouse. And it became a win, and you could see where our ops manager out there, that was his feedback as well, and his big wins and lessons learned from this. And I think the last one here that's unique, that we're going to see more as we count in that building longer and as we do more locations, but what does more counting do to efficiency, right? We talked about cycle counting. We talked about how that can help, right, with equipment around cycle counting, but that's not the whole solution. There's more to it around if your inventory is accurate and you go to pick from that area, what does that mean for your outbound productivity, and what does that look like, right? So that's something that as we work more with this ops team on the West Coast and other sites, we're excited to see how that adds into our payback and our business case. All right.
So I want to thank Cody and the NFI 5 team really for kind of giving us the shot and also for fully adopting the drones into their workflow. I think it's been an amazing partnership, and really just looking at not only how do the drones drive value for individual counting itself, but how does it look at improving throughout the entire organization, the speed at which counts are done, the accuracy of the facility, and then how do you continue to drive value. Here just a little breakdown of some of the other benefits that some of our other customers have had. From Gather's perspective, we really work with the core competencies of warehousing. What I mean by that is that many different industries, be it in 3PL, be it in retail, manufacturing, food distribution, all of them really have the core competency need of highly accurate warehousing. And so one of the biggest problems that we're here to solve really is speed. many of our customers, instead of just running one drone, one operator can go through and run 3 drones at the same time, meaning you take an individual that typically does 45 to 60 locations an hour and turn them into something that runs 900 locations per hour. Really just changing math here for instead of going through and checking known good product all day in an automated lift, you're now taking individuals, bringing them to the floor, and allowing them to go through, quickly fly an aisle, identify all the errors, and spend all day fixing problems. Another one of our customers, instead of going through and taking their entire cycle count team to count the inventory for 90 days, they're able to do it with one individual in 2.5 days. Just flying through the warehouse, imaging, finding all of those errors, and then able to run their business far more smoothly because they know exactly where the mistakes are, and they can go through and remove any of those blockers. From a cost-saving perspective, we have a customer who went from 6 cycle counters on MHE down to 1. That was $250,000 of savings just in lifting equipment alone. Another one that went through and was able to remove the need to go through and do a shutdown and a full physical inventory, that was $200,000 of savings right there. From a productivity standpoint, we had another customer who told us before they used drones, and they were afraid to admit this before, they had 20 to 30 pallet file drills a day, meaning they went through and had to go and scramble to find the individual pallet for the individual customer that needed to be shipped out that day. With our system, that's dropped down to 1, 2 on their worst days. Finally, from a sales perspective, drones are sexy. People are excited to see them. And a lot of times for our customers, when they're able to co-sell this technology, say this is a differentiator. This is the reason we're up here with NFI, is to share that, hey, from a cutting edge technology standpoint, the end customer is able to not just have faster counts, but to have that traceability, to have images of every single pallet location, and to drive that through to make sure that now you have the trust of your end customer. And for one of our customers, they were actually able to double their sales because they were co-selling the drones as a differentiator. So that's kind of some of the additional benefits beyond what have been brought up in this pilot.
Yep.
We'll go to the next one. I'd love to open it up to questions. Definitely we're excited that everyone came to join us in the middle of lunch. I don't know, show of hands, who's hungry or who was able to ford the line. But would love to know, aside from where's the best vendor of food, if you guys have any questions.
You may have mentioned this earlier, but what mechanism is the drone using, I assume to capture barcodes, right? What mechanism is the drone using? Is there a scan engine on the drone? That's question 1. Question 2, what did you use before the drones came in? Was it a paper and pencil? Was it a scan gun? What were you guys using? Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent question. So the drone itself is just using a high-definition camera. It's taking a picture of each location, and then we're actually using machine learning to go through, identify that barcode, read the barcode off the image, read the text off the image, as well as read any of the case information or empty locations. It's all based on one high-definition image that's directed by the drone that gives you the XYZ coordinates and the timescale.
Yeah, and before we used a cherry picker or a stock picker, and we would go around, we have Manhattan WMS deployed at the site, and we would take the RF guns and scan each location going to each level of the rack. So that's really where the speed comes in. Those manual picking methods are around 40 locations per hour, and again, we were seeing 5 times the speed with using the drone.
Perfect. Any other questions?
Okay. Yeah, hi. So 2 questions. So one is, for the drone operation, are you closing off an area of the building, or can they
So the question being, do you need to shut down the building or the aisle or which section for the drones to operate? So the drones themselves can't operate on shift, so meaning we can support facilities that have 24/7 operation. All you're doing is the same practice that you do with current cycle counting, where you pause for the 100 pallets as the drone is counting them, because you don't want to be moving inventory as you're counting it. If you need to access the aisle as it's operating, there's a big red button on the iPad that controls the drone. You just hit the red button, the drone power descends, and the aisle is made safe within about 10 seconds. So a lot of our customers are constantly going through counting and picking at the same time. It's not an issue. All we do is encourage everyone to give a 15-foot safety cordon from the drone, just so that no one is interfering in anyone else's workspace. But at any time, you just hit the button and it comes down, and the aisle is made available.
Just one more, thank you.
Of course.
How does it interface with your WM?
Yeah, so for us, we basically used it as a tool on the side of our WM, and we could determine, hey, this is where the areas are. We would go out to find those troublesome areas that maybe weren't matching right from what the drone read, and then we were able to kind of reconcile that back into our system. So we kind of kept it outside, and I believe there is opportunities for integration as well, but we chose the non-integrated route.
Yeah, so just to answer, all of our customers start with what we call a one-way data interchange, meaning that we don't need an IT system to actually go through, interface with the data. All we need is a CSV export from the WMS that we can go through, ingest that file, and determine where everything is supposed to be. Later with our customers, some of them choose to do a two-way interchange where we're then pushing data back into the WMS. But the nice part is, instead of waiting for the IT team to say, okay, we'll have time in 3 to 12 months to go through and start your integration, we can get started right away. We can deploy within 3 weeks. And again, you're seeing value all the way through, and then later we can hook the two ends back together if you need to have that full connection.
And I think the congestion was a good question as well. For us, we did close down the aisles, but we were with a customer that has a very heavy peak season. So some of the concerns from our operators were, hey, this aisle, we're doing a lot of picking at the bottom levels, and it's going to be tough, right, to close down an aisle, right, for that long during the count. But they were able to make it through, right, doing that and closing it off. And again, it's very quick and easy and out of the way, so we were able to get by that. But that was a question we were constantly asking our operators: can you sustain this, right, when you close down aisles?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Perfect. Other questions? Anyone? Judy, I'll let you chip around. Okay. Perfect. Brandon's got it. Thank you.
What were some of the KPIs you used to evaluate going beyond sort of the pilot into scale phase?
Yeah, sure. So these ones really will kind of remain true throughout, right, the life cycle. The productivity, the safety, intervention rate, accuracy. Really, as we got out of this phase, the question to the operations was, have you been able to reduce labor in this area? Have you been able to reduce the equipment? We really wanted to understand the realized savings at that point, whereas the prototype was more data, right? And we were looking at data. I was helping the team make the calculations of what it could be. But as we got into pilots, the team actually was able to make these reductions and align to our business case.
Brandon, I'm going to just let you pick at this point.
Okay. Too late. I've already stolen a microphone.
Okay, cool. We got two of them.
So my question is also around KPIs, and I see your accuracy levels 98, 99%. Is there a delta that you can provide? What were they? What kind of, you don't have to tell us exactly what they were, of course, but did you see a large leap? Is it incremental? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that was a learning curve for us, was the AI being able to read our inventory and the accuracy of what our rack levels look like in different elevations. So that was partnering with Gather. I think some of the items we saw early on was the depth of the pallet, and pallets where there was nothing there, and being able to report that, hey, there's not a pallet here, it's not wrong, it's supposed to be that way. But that was really the one item, right, that we were kind of working at the beginning, that we fixed very early on, and and that was interesting, but that was probably the only item that we ran into.
And this is all part of the machine learning training that occurs within that first month of operation. We go through, we get enough data to confirm what does a pallet location look like, what does an empty location look like, and what does it look like for each warehouse. And so we start out of the box, and then from there we make improvements to make sure that everything is zeroed in for every single facility. I think we had another microphone over here somewhere. Perfect.
So what were some of the limitations or things that were out of scope that even for the drone scanning?
Bulk inventory. So that site had about 10% bulk, and the thought would be, all right, long term, one person can manage the drone, they can then scan the bulk, and then they can use their drone basically to scan the racked inventory. So bulk was out of the scope, and I think the one other area would be A levels, right, and our customer requirements to scan those at a case level. So the thought is there that one person can still manage the counting at the case level for our pick locations, and then they're managing the reserve for the rack. Yeah.
Perfect.
One more. Mr. Merritt, does somebody else have that? question for you. I'm not completely familiar with NFI's business model, but I'm under the assumption that you're probably loading trailers.
On the outbound side, yeah.
Ostensibly,
Yep.
right?
Right.
Any business case using the drone to come into the trailer?
Into the trailer, I would have to defer that to Sean. If they could go in there and fly around, that would be great. But
So today, everything is tied directly to the racking. And the reason for that is because we create kind of this XYZ grid system, and the rack is a perfect place for us to associate locations. We are working on a free space solution, meaning we could do bulk or locations outside into the trailer, anywhere of that nature. And so when we have that, it would be a use case that we can take. But right now, everything is restrained to the rack, just because it gives us that fixed interface where we can say, okay, we know exactly where the pallet is, and this is where you can find your inventory. But excellent question.
Is there any restriction on the type of rack that it can count? Is it single select only, or can you go in, where you have like drive-in and other types of rack?
It's a good question, yeah. So we've used it for single select right now. I know double deep is an opportunity, and potentially pushback as well. And a lot of our customers do have that mix. So I think, within this next year, it'd be good to do a pilot of double deep and how that works as well with our KPIs that we work on with the customer.
Yep. And today we do have customers that do double deep. They do have pushback as well. I think we haven't done as much deep lane or drive-in, just because typically in those cases the individual pallet information is not as important as how many locations are deep. And so in that case, it's not the best use for the specific identification that we're trying to provide. Because we only from the front, we can't see that it's 6 or 7 locations deep. But amazing question.
My question is, what is the battery life of a drone?
Perfect. So one drone is capable, so the battery for one drone is capable of doing 100 to 150 pallets. And so that's typically 15 minutes. And so what we do then is we have one operator that comes through, places the drone in the aisle, hits go, and then that drone scans 100 to 150 pallets, lands, and then someone places a fresh battery. And in doing so, you're taking that individual that was the 45 to 60 locations an hour and turning them into 300 with one drone and 900 with 3 drones. So it is kind of the, it's the human empowerment, and that kind of allows you to move more quickly through the warehouse as opposed to trying to create kind of a back and forth where the drone needs to commute. Perfect, thank you.
It sounds like in order to operationalize this, there is a human element. So a human's actually driving the drone. Do you see a future where it's able to learn certain paths up and down that traverses the travel sequence, and then perhaps act more like a Roomba of sorts?
Definitely. So for us today, the human doesn't actually move any controllers. They're just placing it in the aisle and saying, okay, I want to fly aisle 12 and all of these locations, and it does the mapping and movement. From a perspective of recharging and going back and forth from a Roomba, we actually previously had a product where the drone would fly back to a charging station, stop, recharge, and launch again. The difficulty was it actually sat on the charger for 75% of its life, meaning it was sitting there recharging and then launching for only 25%, meaning 45 minutes of charging, 15 minutes of flight, and then it had to commute back and forth to the inventory location, meaning that you were losing another 10% in commute. And so what we found then was, although all of our customers were very excited with the concept, the actuality was going through, it's a much cheaper, more flexible option to have somebody place it in the aisle and not have to shut down the facility and have it fly through free space because it stayed on target. We continue to innovate and come out with new products and features that I think will be absolutely in alignment with kind of speeding through and being more hands-free. But today we found that the human empowerment was the easiest way to keep costs down, but also keep the operations moving as fast as possible in a very active warehouse environment.
In our initial ideation as well, we were looking for something that was autonomous, flying, we don't have to manage it. And I will say it was hard to find our facilities that don't operate 24/7 or 24/5. So it's hard to find that downtime in between shifts. And you're going to need a lot of drones, if you have less downtime across the week to fly. And then, to my point earlier around, a lot of our sites have bulk. Some of them have the A level and the pick faces. You still need a baseline human operator, to sometimes count those areas. And, that's where the one operator, one drone mix has really, worked well for us.
Wonderful question. Anybody else? Perfect. Oh, Brendan, please. Thank you for getting your steps in.
Can it do bulk locations?
So we're working on a bulk solution, right? So it is something that we're actively looking at today. So once available, there will be a nice big exciting announcement, and we would love to support your bulk in that day. Perfect. This is great. We ran out of questions and time at about the same moment.
That's right.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Perfect.